Okay, we'll get started. Thank you everyone for joining. Today we're talking about how artificial can help EHS in practice. So looking at solving risks, compliance, and site safety through the use of artificial intelligence. We have 3 speakers today. So we'll start with a bit of an introduction from all of us. My name is Heather Chapman. I started my career in a UAW facility in Southeast Michigan back in the early 2000s. And this organization was plagued with injuries, a lack of policies and systems, and an us versus them culture. Over the years, I was able to work alongside employees and leaders to turn things around, but it took FaceTime, literally FaceTime. I spent a lot of time out on the production floor working with employees, getting their feedback and their buy-in, and working with them to make improvements to the work that they were doing. I also spent a lot of time with leaders, showing them the value of safety and the ROI that can be achieved through making these workplace safety improvements. All of these things, over the years really work to move the needle and change the culture. So I know very well just the challenges that we face as safety professionals and how much of it takes a lot of our time, and there's a decent amount of administrative burden to the tasks that we need to do. So I spent 17 years working in plant and corporate safety before I went to the dark side and became a consultant. So I opened my own consulting business in 2018 and started working with organizations across the globe, including Soter. So today I'm going to speak to you not only as a Soter representative and how Soter AI can work to help you, but also as a safety professional who uses Soter AI in her own business. So Mike, if you wouldn't mind giving an introduction of yourself and your background.
Yeah, hey everybody, my name is Dr. Mike Getch, and I am the head of product at Soter, and I get to be part of the ground floor of making all products at Soter, from wearable ergonomic to AI, and I've really enjoyed it. However, my career took a turn about 2 years ago. I was a practicing physician for 7 years and was actually helping patients from workers' comp claims, motor vehicle accidents, stuff like that. And then just got fascinated with the technology space and joined Soter in 2023. And so I've watched this AI space kind of grow and develop from its infancy, all the way from the launch of ChatGPT way back in 2022, it seems now a long time ago, to where we are now. And I've been able to formulate and form the strategy, for this product that we'll talk about a bit today, but more globally, how AI can be applied throughout your entire business. So looking forward to this conversation. Hopefully it's beneficial for you guys.
I like that you said way back in 2022, like that was so long ago. But in the world of AI, we probably all feel a tad overwhelmed because it literally changes by the day and there's always something new and it is hard to keep kind of on top of. So, hopefully between the 3 of us today, everybody can walk away with some real specific use cases and how you can apply it in your own work. Tim, thank you for joining us today. Would you mind giving a brief introduction and describing why in your picture here you look like you're a baby?
Well, for starters, that picture was taken way back when, actually, about 10 years ago, early on the start of my career, when I first had to make a LinkedIn profile and trying to join the job market, and I needed a professional picture. So actually, I had my roommate take this one in our apartment at the time. So obviously, grown up a little bit in the last 10 years, have spent majority of my time in general industry. Working either for the manufacturer or consulting for them. Also had a little experience with being in the military. Did serve 9 years in the Wisconsin Army National Guard. I got some really cool experience, but I was also our unit safety officer, which was a unique experience for a lower enlisted individual to have, as that's typically ran by an officer. So I currently am the regional manager for forefront in our northern locations. I oversee a territory that's basically compromises the Midwest that has a total of about 600 employees. And as Heather mentioned, I am also a customer. I did do quite a big, extensive research project to get this whole Ergo project approved and move through. And Soter gave me one of the opportunities that nobody else on the market could do at the time.
Great. Thank you. Glad to have both of you here. So what we're covering today here on the slide is our agenda. And I just want to make note, if you look in the chat section, you will see a link there. If you complete that link, Soter will give you access to the platform for 15 days without charge. So free trial, if you want to fill out that form, please do so. You will receive access and have that for just over 2 weeks. If you also have questions along the way, please drop them in the chat. And in the last 10 to 15 minutes of the presentation, we will save time for a Q&A session. So, as we probably all know, AI is evident in every profession and pretty much all aspects of life nowadays. As a safety professional, we can use AI to streamline the work that we need to do, and that can free us up to do things that are more creative and more value add. AI can also level the playing field in terms of knowledge. So think about if you have to enter a new field, a new work zone within the safety world. Maybe you're starting to work in mining and you've never worked in mining before. It takes a lot to get yourself knowledgeable about MSHA and the regulations that apply within mining. Now with AI, you can have all of that at your fingertips in real time immediately. What about young professionals entering the workforce? Well, AI can start to level that playing field. So today we're going to focus on the various ways we can use artificial intelligence workflows to help you in the work that you need to complete. And then we're going to hear from Tim regarding his own experiences in deploying this at Forefront. One thing that we always like to say, and I think this is very important, AI is not a replacement for HI, our human intelligence and human ingenuity. I currently sit on the American Society of Safety Professionals AI Task Force, and we are looking at this now and looking at our position statement on AI and kind of refocusing on how it's getting used and what are the ethics behind the use of AI. So, getting us going, let's talk just for a moment about EHS and risk management because they are intertwined. And as you start using the Soter platform, you will notice not only do we have all these AI workflows, there's going to be a risk register. And these two things are very much intertwined. So risk management involves identifying and evaluating and controlling potential events that could cause harm or loss or disruption to your business. In the field of safety, we focus on preventing injuries, illnesses, and incidents. How? By identifying hazards and implementing measures to protect people, property, and the environment. So oftentimes we find that safety is a subset of a company's broader risk management strategy. So ultimately, what we have are the frameworks. So what are the systems behind how we identify hazards? What is the quantification method we use for quantifying the level of risk that's present? And how can AI help us with that? Well, as we're feeding information into our systems, the AI can automatically start to detect hazards and start to quantify that risk for us and put that in a very simple dashboard so that we as safety professionals can start to see where our greatest risks lie and then have an interface with this AI system to figure out where should I prioritize my efforts? What efforts should I be making? Do I need engineering controls? Do I need to change the system or the process? If so, what are some measures that I could take? What are some steps that I could take? And then both of these rely on continuous improvement. We can't just set it and forget it. So once we make a change or implement a control, we do need to make sure that what we did was effective. And we always need to go back and confirm that what we did actually reduced the risk. And then we need to continue on, always trying to do better and reduce the risk overall. So from a safety perspective, I kind of summarized what I feel like are some of the biggest challenges that we face. Oftentimes when you're within an organization, we have fragmented data and there's always time-consuming reporting. If you're surviving Q1 right now with all of the regulatory reports, hats off to you, because this first quarter of the year is always brutal with all of the reporting that we need to do. We also have to do inspections. We have risk assessments. We need to do our annual safety policy reviews or safety manual reviews. We have training that we need to complete. All of these things are labor intensive. And if we're spending our time sitting at our computer, then we aren't actually out on the floor trying to make a difference. There's also a lot of regulatory changes that we have to keep up with. And considering our current administration, there's going to be some changes and possibly a lack of new policies and procedures coming through at the federal level. So how do we stay on top of all of that? There could be changes in emphasis programs. There could be changes in how we do our record keeping next year. It's debatable on whether or not we'll see a heat stress standard actually come to fruition this year. So staying on top of all of these potential changes and knowing when and if it's going to impact your business is obviously critical. We have dispersed operations. So we have staff that could be spread out across multiple sites, multiple states. Of course, there's going to be differences in operations, the ways of work, and the culture. I'm currently working with an organization that has 11 different sites across the US, and I'm not surprised to find that some of the sites have some really great best practices, but somehow it never made it across all 11 sites. So there's a communication gap. There's just a best practices gap that's happening and not getting shared amongst all of the 11 businesses. And then there's a knowledge burden. So I don't know how many organizations I work with where when you ask who's in control of safety, it's pointing the finger to the safety person or the safety department. And it doesn't have to be that way. I think as safety professionals, we all agree that safety needs to be everyone's responsibility, but how do you bring that to practice? How do you make your words a reality? Well, AI and systems like Soter AI can actually make that a reality so that your operations staff have access to safety knowledge, whether that's regulatory knowledge or your own internal company safety documentation and your own internal safety knowledge. AI systems can help level that playing field within operations so that everybody truly can be a part of and engage in the safety process. So I'm going to ask Tim to kind of share some of the challenges that he's specifically facing at Forefront and walk us through those.
Well, as you can see from the slide, a lot of what Heather had just mentioned is exactly what we're facing in Forefront. It's the real world problems of what we're going to see. Ergonomics is not going to be somebody's number one priority, especially when you have a key leader asking, well, what's the regulation saying I have to do this? And there really isn't a true OSHA regulation. We have our general duty clause, but there's nothing that specifically says I have to do this and make it this exact way. So with that issue being present, a lot of our work cells and stations, they're not designed to meet the 90th percentile to where we're covering that large amount of the population. And the other issue that we face within our operations is that we do have several people that are outside of that design specification. Because we are extremely diverse. We have folks from all over the world, different walks of life, different backgrounds, different cultures, values, and belief systems. So that leads to another issue of just what are those differences? How do people value safety? If somebody hasn't been exposed to a safe work environment, they're not going to understand this is the right way to do things. And maybe that term that gets thrown a lot around is common sense. Well, if you don't have a common upbringing, common knowledge and education, you're not going to have those same thought processes that everybody's going to have. And you're going to see even just in regions within the United States, folks are going to have different what's acceptable levels for manual labor, for skilled labor, things of that nature. One of our biggest issues that we have is we have only 3 full-time regional EHS managers for 19 locations scattered throughout the whole continental United States and North America as a whole, between Mexico and Canada. That's over 1,400 employees, and for you mathematicians, that's a lot of people per person. lot of sites, a lot of traveling, a lot of moving around. Me personally, I don't go to the same site every day. Every day, I'm fortunate most of my sites within my region are local, but every day I'm traveling to a different location. So it becomes a huge burden when you're trying to make sure, as Heather mentioned on the last slide, with the different regulatory reporting, compliance training, making sure everybody's on the same sheet of music, can be very, very challenging. And our last major problem that we have is an aging workforce. And this isn't unique to Forefront only. We're seeing this nationwide. Younger generations aren't choosing manual labor positions. They're taking more technical, more as continuous education courses to try and advance their careers further along. So with that, there's a huge gap within the employment group. When we don't have those younger generations taking on those burdensome roles, a lot of the older generations are continuing to keep those roles on, take them on, and unfortunately, they're not able to rest and recover as quickly as they did when they were younger. That's leading to more strains, sprains, musculoskeletal disorders, and other types of injuries that can negatively impact not only the person getting employed, but those around them, whether it's the psychological component or even looking into potential weaknesses within the operation, downtime, looking at how are we going to get this job done if we don't have the staff to do it.
So before we jump into, AI's answer to how to solve some of these problems, I want to set the stage for artificial intelligence. What is it specifically? How is Soter AI developed and what makes it unique? So for this discussion, I'm going to ask Mike to walk us through that.
Yeah, so as Tim eloquently stated, there are challenges at his business that may apply to each and every one of you guys' businesses as well. However, across the board, there are unique challenges that AI is really well positioned to solve. And one of the core hypotheses of Soter when building products is AI directed at the core of the problem can help turn large projects or complex situations into manageable tasks, so making your team more efficient or making the greater impact, meaning better decision making or faster corrective actions. And that was the core hypothesis when we started on this AI journey at Soter. And so that was a year and a couple of months ago when we first started. But where are we now? Like Heather said at the beginning, AI is changing every single week. Me and the team are on all the latest updates, all the latest breakthroughs. So where are we at now? Right now, this slide actually was made a couple of weeks ago, and I put model progression there. And just within the last 3 weeks, new improved large language models have been developed by other companies that have raised the benchmark for intelligence that AI is able to operate at. Now, when I say here these reasoning models is some of the latest breakthrough, that's 3, 4, 5 months old. However, it's a key component of now how we're able to deliver better insights for our users. What reasoning models are, and I'm going to use a human-like situation, is before reasoning models, we had what were called zero-shot models, where they would, let's say you asked it a question, and then instantly it would start to spit out an answer. That would be equivalent to someone running into your office and saying, hey, we've got an issue with this, what's the solution? And you just start talking and you just try to come up with the answer as you're talking. There was no thought. It was just, you're trying to stumble into the right answer. That's what these AI models were doing, which is why you were having a high preponderance for, inconsistencies, inaccuracies, hallucinations. Well, now all these reasoning models, what it gives the AI time to do is set 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, sometimes longer, for the AI to actually think through the problem and decompose it, just like our brains as humans do in real time. Now these AI models are able to deconstruct a problem and then say, what's the best way to solve this? So it would be like if someone ran into your office, they told you the problem, and then you say, hold on, let me think. You would probably come up with a more accurate, more precise answer than what you would have if you had just started talking. So that's one of the latest AI breakthroughs that we use throughout the platform that I'll explain, in a bit. The next kind of progression are these vertical agents. What I mean by that is what you get in ChatGPT, what you get with Grok, what you get with Claude are general purpose large language models. They're very intelligent about a corpus of information, i.e. the entirety of the internet, right? That's what they're trained on. What vertical agents are, and that's what Soter AI is a vertical agent, is it's trained specifically on a corpus of information about a single industry. Okay. So it weeds out and like doesn't really care about recipes for blueberry muffins from the internet. It only is trained on, OSHA regulations or, international safety standards or EHS manuals, stuff like that, that refine its ability to process and reason through that lens. And that's what these vertical agents are now is, you see one for legal, you see one for accounting, you see them for all these different verticals. And Soter AI is the leader for EHS and risk management. And that these vertical agents are able to drive up accuracy. So what's the difference between vertical agents and general purpose? Higher accuracy levels, higher tailored responses for your industry. So meaning it already kind of knows the outcome you want. It already knows the report you're trying to generate. It already kind of knows what is the response they're looking for because it's already been trained on those pieces of content, whereas the general purpose are not. And then the last one
Mike,
is
1
reduce
second.
cost. Yep.
I just want to, we always get asked this, so I just want to reiterate something you said. This vertical agent, Soter AI, is trained on federal OSHA,
Yep.
state-specific OSHA plans, national emphasis programs. You have regulations in Canada, this model's trained on it. Australia, UK, all over the globe, safety regulations have been used to set up the guardrails and parameters for Soter AI. So if you ask, does it know Mexico safety regulations? Yes. If you see something that you need in a specific country that maybe we don't have, it can be added in a matter of minutes. So or did I overspeak, Mike? Does it take hours?
No, it's minutes. It's minutes
Oh.
as long as the product team is aware of what country is needed. Yeah.
So just to reiterate, this Soter AI has been trained on safety and health regulations across the globe, and we can also put in certain consensus standards. We can also put in your own unique standards, maybe internal to your company. Okay, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that was a great point. That last bit I didn't mention, which is there is public information and private information, and there's actually more information that's within the guarded, let's say, Dropboxes and Google Drives and SharePoints of the world than there would be, readily available for public consumption. And so what vertical agents are able to do is securely use internal information to then take a vertical agent like Soter AI and almost turn it into an internal asset for a company because it's trained on that information. So that was a really important point there. The last thing, and probably the most important, is reduce cost. These costs are going to zero. And what that means is as costs go down, usage goes up. When it was really expensive to process and do these types of analysis, less people use it because there's a threshold of entry. There's a barrier to entry, which is cost. Well, now with open source models that are driving the cost to essentially zero, we now are seeing massive spikes in usage because intelligence is becoming more ubiquitous. It's almost becoming a commodity. And so there's more access points for more people at different price points. And this is what Jevons paradox is all about, which is as a resource becomes more available, more easy to produce, usage goes through the roof. And what would that look like in your organization if not every decision was made through the lens of AI, but could be used or could be processed through that lens? what could be faster, what could be better, what could be more accurate. The potential right there is pretty unique. So we'll get a bit more detail on that on the next slide. So uh, Heather mentioned this, and it's an important point. How it was developed is just taking the corpus of information about EHS and risk management and saying, if we were to go get all that information, and train it on a single model, what improvements could get made to accuracy, to response time, stuff like that. And that's how we initially started, was just went out and grabbed as much information as we could that correlated to EHS and risk management. How it gets improved, there's a couple ways. One of the main things that improves the model performance is when companies connect their internal information, because now it becomes even more relevant to their business. The other way that we improve it is by adding new workflows. So when a customer comes to us and says, hey, can you do this? Can you analyze massive spreadsheets and have an agent be able to talk to us, or be able to give us insights based off of all this spreadsheet data? We build it, and it becomes an increase or an improvement to the overall experience. So new workflows get made that allow for users to do more things. That's another way. The other thing is, we stay on top of the latest model progressions. We stay on top of all of the latest breakthroughs and apply that into our system. So instead of you guys being EHS experts having to stay on top of the AI space, that's where our team of experts really focus their time and energy and say, where are these other breakthroughs happening in maybe in a tangential market or in just the general purpose AI space, and how does that apply, or how can we make that improvement to our platform? And so we try to stay on top of all the latest breakthroughs, and that's how we also improve it. What can it do right now? I mentioned this earlier. It's an intelligent answer engine. It's going to help make projects become tasks. So things that might take weeks now take days, or things that might take a day now take a few minutes. And it's like compressing that time of delivery of a corrective action or an insight will then allow for you guys to focus again on the things that are important. Maybe instead of being reactive, now we're proactive because you have more time on your hands. Maybe a bit more organized about what's the strategy of implementation, what's the best way to do all that. And that's how we see usage on our platform, which is someone uploads a photo of a workstation, they find all these hazards, and then Soter AI is like, attack this one first, attack this second, attack this third, and you can be a bit more strategic as opposed to reacting to different scenarios. And then I've already said this, I'll go very quick. How is it different from the general purpose large language models like ChatGPT? They're trained on large corpus of information. They are general purpose. Ours is focused on silos of information that are unique to EHS. And what becomes the difference is it's more accurate, it's more precise, and it's going to use the language of the industry so that there's not this having to understand or interpret what the AI is trying to say. It's going to speak like an EHS person would speak when communicating hazards or warnings or risks or anything like that. It's gonna use that terminology, which helps shorten that time. It compresses that time of going from what's the problem to what's the solution. So going on to that next slide. This is one of the big things that I mentioned, was this predictive analytics. So in this video that you're watching, this is a massive spreadsheet of, I think it's an injury, or incident, data spreadsheet with thousands and thousands and thousands of records. And it's processing all of that and delivering insights based off of most common body part that was injured, or what's your highest risk facility or highest risk location, or what is the job role or the department that you need to focus on, what time of day or month, based off of all this data that traditional, if you're going to look at a normal spreadsheet, a human wouldn't be able to pull that data out. The AI is able to do that in real time, and then even offer a predictive scenario of what's your most likely next injury. Where should you be looking? What facility? What what department, what employee, maybe even if it's at a job role level, is most likely to have what specific injury. And that way you can take all that historical information and turn it into valuable, tangible insights that you can then go take and move on to the facility floor. And there's so many use cases to this model specifically. But really what I want to drive home is, there is all of this data that you guys have from from decades and decades of operations. What is it doing for you now? And that's like the oil of the new generation, is that data, and you can turn that data into useful insights with Soter AI that can then drive decision making, drive very strategic decision making, because it can take large unstructured data sets and turn it into valuable insights. And so that's what we're really excited about with where this is going. And there's a lot more to come with that on that front as well. So with that said, I'll turn it back over to Heather.
Yeah, and this is kind of the first sneak peek into how can AI help you with your job and streamlining your workflows. This was thousands of rows of data that we dropped into this injury data analysis workflow, and you can see I was treating this just like I would a safety colleague. I'm asking questions of this system. So it did predict where the next injury might take place. But then I said, well, based on the injury data, can you suggest preventative actions that can reduce the number of struck by accidents? Because that came up as a high frequency. So there's some conversation. Anything within here, I could have picked apart and gone a lot deeper on. I could ask for specific recommendations about what types of things could I put on my fork trucks to help prevent those types of accidents. What are some return to work strategies for people that have, restrictions of no lifting over 10 pounds or no reaching overhead? I could ask all of these questions of the system, and it's going to give me very tailored answer because I provided it with thousands and thousands of data points to draw conclusions from. So first sneak peek into how AI can help you with your workflows and, gaining insights very quickly. So Tim, I'm going to ask if you would kind of talk about one of the ways you're using AI for the policy side of things.
Absolutely. So I'm sure everybody on this call loves writing policy procedure, reviewing them, auditing them, reading them all the time, especially for my multi-site peers. I'm sure you really love doing this. One of the things that we do is we set up a schedule. So that way, at least monthly, we're only going to have to take a bite out of that pie and not try and eat the whole pie at once. So we do have a schedule that we go off of. So the nice thing is when we're doing that auditing process, we can go through it. We don't have to necessarily worry, is it everything that we're saying going to be absolutely perfect? Because one of the things that I love doing is right before I'm ready to hit save and send it out and distribute it to the affected parties, is I run it through the compliance chatbot and kind of look, all right, where are these opportunities? Where are my shortcomings? Do I have that in there? And then when I get those prompts, then I can even, as simple as, okay, can you give me language on how to fix that? And we'll show some examples here in the demo video sneak peek as well. But then it's also nice, as it was mentioned before, you can have it cross-reference your own internal policies. So if you actually go through the process of uploading your procedures and you need documentation in there, the AI model is going to learn it. And it's going to be able to cross-reference, make sure if you are writing that new policy, to make sure things are aligning and you don't have one thing saying one different from another area. Another convenient thing that's really nice to have is we're building a lot of training documentation and really building out a whole training portfolio in depth and not just having the classic tribal knowledge. You do this work with me for a while, I'll pass the knowledge on in time. And working that way, we're trying to have everything documented down to this, the smallest tedious task of have some type of work instruction so that anybody can be a trainer in the future. And with that new program, that kind of thing like that can be a daunting task, especially if you're that lucky person that gets assigned this task and you're like, I've never done anything like this. How do I go about that? So the nice thing is you can kind of plug into the prompt and ask for for information. It will generate information for you to use. Now, as it's mentioned, it is AI. It does not replace the human interaction, but what it does, is the way I look at it, is it gives me the outline for building a program. So one of the current things that I'm working on is getting 2 sites currently, getting them their ISO 14001 environmental sustainability certification before the end of the year. Well, I had never done start to finish any ISO work before. All I've done is done a couple of tasks to help support maintaining the status, but not the launch. So what I've been able to do is put in the ISO standards and then start asking questions. Okay, what do I need to do? How can I go about each step of this process and give it a little bit more insight on, okay, hey, I have this outline. Okay, now I need to go answer those, how they fit to my specific needs. We're also using it for our environmental program. As I mentioned, we're going for ISO certification in the environmental sustainability side. So a lot of what we had on the environmental side is getting revamped, getting brought into the late into the 2020s, so to speak, making sure that we're staying up to date with regulations, because we've had some things in the past that everybody was okay with. Hey, we did the bare minimum. Is that what we want to do? And from our goal on the EHS team for Forefront is we want to be a global leader. We want to be a world-class safety program, have that gold standard, have people reach out to us for, how do we do it? How do we get there? What does that look like? As mentioned at the beginning of the slide, we do annual policy reviews. The biggest thing is trying to make sure that we get that done. And how do we make that happen? We have 19 sites. A lot of places have their own site-specific procedures and policies. How do we make sure that we're getting through that? Well, like I mentioned before, we run things through a compliance chatbot, make sure everything's looking good on the legal side, make sure there's no language that's gone through there, but it does significantly speed up that time versus in the past where one person might be doing their policy review in say January, and another might be doing it in July, and now something's changed in between, and now everybody's policies aren't aligned. So what we've also started to work on is getting this onto a corporate-wide standard handbook. So it's not necessarily each site-specific policy, but we're working on writing a handbook that will be used across all facilities as a general guidelines to help fill in the gaps where somebody might not know all our specific policies. And so here's just showing a quick example with the prompt and then the response. And one of the things that was mentioned earlier is when we're saying minutes, I mean, these prompts are coming by really quickly. As you type in an answer, depending on the complexity of it, usually you're getting an answer within 15-20 seconds. If you're asking for a more complex issue, it will take a little bit longer. But the nice thing is, if you're not an expert in policy writing or you need that little extra reassurance, for example, we had one of our facilities had an OSHA inspection at the end of last year when we were sending off all our policies. As my last double check before I sent it to everybody, I ran it through this, and thankfully we didn't have any issues with any of our policy documentation.
That's a good idea. Okay, so thank you for that. That's a great use case for reviewing policies and helping prepare some of the documentation. Another way, this is something that I use quite frequently, and I imagine as a safety person at a facility, you are responsible for doing inspections, or you might have people on your team that are responsible for doing some sort of safety inspection. Well, now we can upload videos into the AI and have it very quickly analyze what potential issues could be there. So you upload a video and essentially you could tell it if you're located in a specific country or a state so that it knows which regulation it's going to be comparing against. But when you feed that into the system, it's going to come back and tell you where do you have violations? What is the specific code that is an issue within this image? It's going to give you a plain English summary. It will also give you the lovely regulatory verbiage, but the plain English summary to go along with it. If you want to assess that video against any other standard, all you have to do is tell it, hey, that's great that you looked at federal OSHA. Could you also see what Cal OSHA says about this? Again, like I showed in the other video, treat this as a query, as another safety person, have a conversation. So once it gives you those violations, start asking questions. It giving you the regulatory code violations and potential issues in the image or the video, that's your starting point. You need to now finish that conversation. What are some potential solutions? What are the potential costs on those? Hey, if I implement this, what's the ROI? Essentially, when I use this type of tool, it cuts my inspection time by probably 30 to 40% easily. And then, of course, the report writing time, I easily cut that in half because I don't have to go searching for codes anymore. The system provides all of that to me. Also, it's really helpful when I'm in industries that I'm not, it may not be in my wheelhouse, but this helps level that for me so that if it sees, if I miss something, this is catching it for me. And I'm able to quickly see what could be wrong. So here's an example of an inspection I did last year. I started this conversation by kind of telling it, hey, it's methyl acetate. I know the fork truck wasn't rated. The drum wasn't bonded and grounded. So I did give it some starting information so that it knows, what to be looking for and what codes I'm concerned with. So it gives me all of the potential CFRs that are going to be a problem. It gives me the regulatory language, the plain summary. I get some warnings, and I can drill down into any of these to get more information. You can see the view document. That's the initial report that's generated. Now I'm having a conversation. Hey, what are some things I can do to improve this process? So this is giving me some feedback. I'm asking, okay, give me ideas and directions on respiratory protection because I already told it it's methyl acetate, so we know that there's organic vapors involved. What should we be doing for spill response? It's giving me answers to that. And again, on any one of these, I could query further. I could say drain covers. Okay, can you give me links to vendors of drain covers? And then boom, quickly have access to a few different options of where I could buy or purchase drain covers. I could ask questions related specifically to electrical code. Hey, I don't know if items in this area are rated for flammable atmosphere. It's going to give me the feedback I need to know where to direct plant management on investigating, do we have the correct wiring in place to be in this type of atmosphere? And in fact, in this scenario, we did not. But all of this happened within seconds. And the great thing is I loaded this video into the platform and I didn't wait for answers. I actually just carried on with my inspection and started gathering more information. As I had more things to upload, I just kept putting it into the system. So by the time I was done with my overall walkthrough, which took about 3 hours, I had a whole bunch of information already prepared for me. I didn't have to go back and review everything and comb through regulations. It was done. So that's super handy. Very helpful to help me get work done so that now that I know where the issues are, I can help them focus on fixing those issues. So Tim, if you would, kind of another use case here is on the ergonomic front. So you'd walk us through maybe some of your experiences with the ergonomic workflow. We'll appreciate that.
Absolutely. So, two of my facilities, as I mentioned before, are test subjects for this project. In our Muskego plant, we do seals and shelters. So I didn't talk about it at the beginning, but Forefront is a leading loading dock manufacturer. We make everything that you could think of in the loading dock, from the seal, the shelter, trailer restraint, overhead door, shelter. Aftermarket products, all sorts of stuff, even some getting into some of the technology side, those high volume, low speed fans, all sorts of things. So Muskego plant, they focus on seals and shelters. So the part that the semi backs up into the building. And one of our specific areas in case uses, what we've been doing is looking at our covering tables. Well, the way we make our material, we have a vinyl product that gets sewn, getting ready to get assembled over to the actual product product where it covers some foam. And we had a lot of issues with over the years of people having to handle these products because it's not the weight, it's the awkward size of them, because you got to think about it, a semi trailer fitting around there, that, you know, just the side pads alone can be 8 to 12 feet, depending on what's going on the different customizations that the customer orders. So what we were able to use, and this is my best friend here, this is my iPad that you can't quite see. I go around, and when we're doing our inspections, and even when we have our interns on site on the floor, they'll go ahead and record videos of people doing these tasks. And it's just a 2-minute video, and this isn't anybody can do this. I won't say it's so easy a caveman could do it, but simple as record a 2-minute video, upload it to the site, and it'll start to process. And just as Heather just said, you start uploading it, start going on to the next thing, it will still work in the background. So what we're working currently on is getting an outfeed conveyor system, so that way as this finished product is completed, instead of having to you know, the military term, lay ho heave, and throw it on their shoulder and show how strong they are and rough and tough, and then go carry it, you know, 10 to 15 feet over to the crate or the skid or the bin that we put it in, we're going to try and minimize that amount of handling. So now they can just laterally slide it across a ball bearing conveyor. And we've been using that step-by-step process to help justify some of that cost. And then for the shelters, for our frame building and how we analyzed, or how we actually assemble, we just started to analyze that, looking at, okay, how can we improve this fixture? And we're actually starting to look at getting a new fixture, because the nice thing is it was adaptable when we bought it. The fixture now is approximately 8 to 10 years old. Things aren't working the same way. The seals don't work as well. And we found out the team wasn't actually adjusting it anymore because it was too much of a pain in the butt. So for some of those projections, for those larger environments where they need a bigger product, you know, some of these shorter individuals are having to reach above their head just to grab material, even though we're using a crane. They're still having to lift that material up and move those toolings in place. And then lastly, for this facility, the glassing plant, where we put some glassing, and we play that on top, and that's what covers the part of the crown, if you will, or the header, keeps the material, the moisture, the rain, the snow, and the elements off. What we're doing there is we're just analyzing that workflow. Again, all of these, we're recording a video. It's an up to 2-minute video. Anybody can do it. Doesn't take a whole lot of training. We upload that, have that process. Very similar process in our Kenosha facility, but the issue that we have here is now we're not talking seals and shelters. We're talking different types of doors, from your standard overhead door to looking at a high-speed roll-up door, and the different configurations for both of those. Specifically, what we're focusing in is our overhead door line, and then how we pack up our fabric doors. So the way we pack up our fabric doors is a little bit archaic and old school, and it's the way they've always done it. And every time I ask or inquire, I always get the saying, well, that's the way we've always done it. And if anybody that knows me, I can't stand hearing that. That drives me nuts. That's like the nail in the coffin to me that says, hey, we need to make sure this is moved up on the top priority list to fix this problem. So we're currently utilizing these video processing and trying to forecast potential risk. You know, thankfully in a lot of these areas, we haven't had a ton of injuries lately, but that doesn't mean we haven't had them in the past, and that doesn't mean they can't happen tomorrow. Anything can happen at any point in time. So we're just using this to really run that cost justification, that ROI, to say, hey, you know what, we need to spend a couple of $1,000s for this material handling equipment. And you know what, here's your potential savings that you could have here. So here's another sample one. Unfortunately, for you guys, all our stuff is protected. We got some strong legal requirements, but here's a sample video. You upload it. It's going to say thank you. Might have a couple of follow-up questions, but then you answer the questions and it starts scoring it for you in real time. So if ergo is not your cup of tea like it is for Heather and I, this can help push you and navigate you through this process and help you manage your time, so you're not trying to sit there and understand every little aspect. And here it's even giving you some suggestions. Now it is AI, and as Heather said, this is you still need to look at it, and not every solution is going to work in every environment. So you might have to change your prompts around a little bit, just to make sure you're asking it a different way. Because that was one of the things early on when we first started using it. I just didn't know how to ask the questions to AI. I hadn't at that time ever used any chat GPT or AI, anything like that. So I didn't know how to ask the questions. I thought I could just speak to it like it was a regular person. But then I slowly started to understand, hey, if you ask things and tweak the way you word it, you can actually get the answer you want. And like the video is showing you, there's tons and tons of opportunities. And think of it as like an outline to correct the problem. It's going to give you ideas, give you a rough timeline, and if you ask for it, it will more than likely deliver exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah, and one of the things I like about the Ergo workflow is that the ROI is always so important. And that is just one thing I don't enjoy having to do. So I love being able to just drop into this some basic information about, known injury costs, maybe production rates or profit margins, and the cost of the intervention that I'm suggesting, and asking it for an ROI. And it does that in seconds instead of me spending time doing it. So I do appreciate that about this platform. Another thing, Tim, if you wouldn't mind kind of talking through, is just like you kind of talked before, but maybe briefly, policy creation. How does this help?
Well, as I said before, I am not a policy and procedure kind of person. I also like to be boots on the ground. I like helping people, getting them to see that aha moment. So for those that are like me, you don't want to sit behind the computer and have to think about how to write every little portion of a policy. This gives you that outline. It gives you that structure so that you can follow it. Obviously, everybody's needs are going to be slightly different. And if you're getting more advanced, maybe some of the larger companies might even have ISO standards in play, where some of your procedures have to be structured in a certain way. This still can give you that template to start answering these questions. And if you have those parameters, you can, again, as I said before, make sure you upload your other policies, or if you have an ISO certification that you're going for, upload your documentation, your ANSIs documentations, and this will kind of spit out a great starting point. You can't copy it verbatim, but you can start, as my college professor once told us, once he figured we were all copying each other and plagiarizing each other's work. He said, it took you guys long enough. It was the 12th week of the semester, and finally he went before everybody started copying each other. But he said that's the whole point. We're not here to reinvent the wheel. We're all safety professionals. We don't have enough time to sit here and recreate everything. So this is a great time saving, especially if policy procedure is not your cup of tea.
Yeah, perfect. Completely agree. And on that same line, like, why recreate the wheel on Toolbox Talks? Just ask Soter AI to create anything under the sun related to safety, and ask it to give you a toolbox talk. So in this particular example, I asked it to, give me some content on respirators and weld fumes. And again, when it gives you an answer, you can always consider that your starting point. If you want it to direct something more particular, like I said, hey, I know that my PELs, that my exposures are below PELs. Can you reframe the conversation? And it did. So it's a starting point. But it gives me, probably a 3 to 5 minute toolbox talk, which is all I need at the start of shift. So great, quick content that I don't have to spend much time developing. And then for those of us with multi-states, you probably know the beast that it is to manage workers' compensation claims and the wide variety and nuances between workers' comp statutes. So again, Soter AI, just drop it in there. I'm specifically asking about work comp nuances in Wisconsin. So can I direct care? Can I get a second opinion? Well, how do I handle disputes in medical opinions? All of this content is available, and the model is trained on this. All you have to do is ask the questions. I could have asked this about Cal OSHA. I could have said, hey, can you give me a breakdown of how Cal OSHA is different than my OSHA in terms of workers' comp statutes? And it would have. I've asked it to tell me about mileage reimbursement. I've asked it about return to work letters. Can you draft me a sample return to work letter? Can you draft a letter to an IME requesting a secondary opinion? Soter AI can do that for you in a matter of seconds. So this kind of takes some of the headache out of having to figure this out on your own or relying on either a third-party administrator or your work comp carrier and waiting just, it could take them a day to get back to you with questions. You can now just ask the system that, and it can give you some very quick guidance on what to do. So as we, come to a close, I'll ask Mike just to kind of summarize some of these things, but I simply want to say that, the use of AI it's in our back pocket. All we need to do is leverage it. And the best way for a safety professional to leverage this, in my opinion, is to automate some of those tasks that we need to do that are administrative in nature and require a big time burden on our part. If you're responsible for inspections and risk management, this is your system to quickly make it very clear where the biggest risks lie within your organization and what actions you might need to take to start to minimize and mitigate those risks. So, Mike, is there anything that you want to add just from a product side before we close and open for questions?
Yeah, the big thing is what's the potential for you is going to be different for what's the potential for somebody else. And so there are so many use cases currently that Soter AI has solved for. And most people are like, well, I don't know if it's going to help me in my unique, situation. And that's kind of what that 15-day free trial is, that if you fill out that form in the comments was going to solve for is, it may unlock a lot of productivity for you. It may unlock accuracy or precision for somebody else. But each customer that we do these product interviews with, that we talk to, there's usually 2 or 3 of these use cases that really drive home the value for their business, because everyone's at a different stage in maturity of their safety program. And what our initial goal was to be able to solve these problems for all industry clients. And no matter if it's a very mature program or a brand new program, we've built workflows or we've built tools, into this platform to enhance the output of a safety program, or a safety team, so that maybe you are just a team of 3, but you output like the team of 30. Or maybe it's you need a bit more precise language. Maybe we need to button up some of these policies and procedures. Instead of that taking a couple of weeks or maybe a month, now it's taking you a day or 2, and you can act with confidence. That's the whole point of this platform. It's never been to say safety managers, don't need them. It's always been, what's the Jarvis to the Tony Stark? What's the extra intelligence we could provide to safety managers to get them to operate maybe at a level that previously they didn't think was possible? And so that's kind of what we're seeing is that shift. And there's always tension whenever there's change. And so a lot of people are like, I just kind of want to dip my toes in. I want to kind of see what's available. That's what we want to provide for you guys today, is that opportunity to see what's possible, and then make a more strategic decision about, okay, how could this actually be implemented in our program at our facility? And that's kind of why we have experts at Soter, is being very strategic about where could this AI be used to get the largest ROI for our business. So yeah, that's pretty much the closing mark that I have, Heather.
Well, thank you for that. We'll take a couple of questions. I see Norman, thank you. The question is this just for managers or safety officers on site? This platform can be made available to anybody at your facility that you would like to have access. So a lot of times, yes, we see it getting used by safety teams across multiple sites. but we definitely have some organizations that are making this platform available to even frontline workers. One of the earlier questions was, can I upload my own internal documents? Yes. So what would it look like in your company if your frontline employees could query the system and say, how do I lock out press number 4? And boom, the lockout procedure for press 4 walked up. And now they could actually have a conversation with this and treat it like a safety person. What's the proper lock for this? Where do I verify that the machine is turned off? Hopefully we don't have people having to ask those questions, but if they do, this information is now accessible anywhere, anytime, not having to wait for a safety person to respond. So hopefully that answers your question. Mike, can you make this like a read-only access too? So like maybe other
Yep.
people just want to see? Okay, yeah.
Yep.
So there's different levels of availability of the system. If there are any other questions, please drop it in the chat. I'm trying to look through those now. Al, has it been used to write SOPs or work procedures? So work procedures, absolutely. Anything that you can think of, yes. Now, if you said, write me a lockout procedure for press number 4, you're going to have to provide it some context. You're going to have to do some tweaking because it's not going to know exactly where the electric shutoff is or the hydraulic shutoff. It's not going to know that information. You're going to have to provide context. It will give you a starting point for things like lockout procedures, but you would be better served to use it for writing different types of procedures. And Tim, if you have any, experience using it in that way, please jump in.
So when we have new things that come up, this is usually how we start that conversation. Again, as I said before, it's an outline. In a lot of places, depending on your company, you might already have a standard formatting, a different, writing Word, Microsoft Word document or something of that nature that you need to follow. But the meat and potatoes of it, if you will, it'll give you that outline. All right, we need to follow these steps, and then you can tailor those individual responses to your site specific needs. So as Heather is saying, it's not going to give you the isolation point just because you took a picture of something. You're going to have to do a little bit of legwork, but the amount of legwork on the admin side, that busy work, it's significantly cutting down on what you're going to have to do.
Yeah, thank you. Mike, I did see a question. What's the accuracy of Soter AI? Do you care to comment on that?
Yeah. So we have, the last time we tested it, it was in the 96 to 97%. So from an accuracy of pulling standards or pulling regulatory language when it analyzes, let's say, a policy or an image or a video. And so we've never, tried to say it's going to be 100% perfect. However, if that was put up against a human and a human accuracy, it's comparable, if not slightly better, based off of the level of detail it is willing to go into. Meaning like it's going to not just provide 1910.1 or 10, it's going to go 1910.10x32 or whatever the subtitle is. So it's getting super granular and it's willing to go a bit deeper in depth, even at that same accuracy level.
Perfect. And then there was a question around IT and security. Can you speak just a little bit about that?
Yeah. First and foremost, we're going to employ all of these systems are built with the industry leading security and safety measures in place. So we're not doing anything new. We're not trying to try anything that isn't already done by every single organization in the world. So you're thinking the AWSs of the world, the Azures of the world have these industry leading security requirements that these databases and that these systems have to run on. We employ those same methods and procedures. Now, if you need documents like a SOC 2 or other privacy policies or where does the data live, all of that can be answered within our user agreement that you can ask for, as we navigate onboarding. But yeah, we take security super serious, and no data is shared. We don't take your data and train internal models. We don't try to, obfuscate, anything when it comes to who owns the data and where is it stored, who has access to it. All of that is very clear in our user agreement, and obviously it's in your favor. It's not like we have a specific clause that allows us to go in there and take it. Like that has not happened, whatsoever. Whereas there are some AI companies out there, like the open AIs of the world, that are known for taking user data and doing that, but that's just not our policy, at Soter.
And
Perfect.
Heather, I'll chime in real quickly. So the company that owns Forefront, they're just out of a Fortune 500, but they own what probably everybody has of those proxy scanners. They own that, and that's every government uses that to get in every establishment. So our IT security requirements are ridiculous. As far as getting things in, we're not even allowed to have Grammarly added on to as an extension on our web browsers for improved writing. But we didn't have any issues, haven't experienced any issues on the IT security side.